Unmute all. Okay, good morning. It's Monday morning, and we are doing Tanya. Tanya Perek, chapter 34, and we are in middle. Okay, I don't hear you. Hold on. You have to unmute. I unmuted you. What happened, Bella?
No, just one question. I
Sure.
just look at the book and so it says the book for in-betweeners. Is there another book for real people?
The in-between. Excellent question. The Tanya is called the book for the Beinoni. The Beinoni translates from the in-betweeners.
Gotcha.
We are, like we said in Tanya, halavai Beinoni. Let us try, our goal is to reach that level of in-betweeners.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, that's the beauty of Tanya. Unlike many other books, right? Like books are written from great tzaddikim, great sages, and in a sense, they're on a very high level, written on a high level, so it's hard sometimes to relate. With Tanya, the Alter Rebbe wrote the book for the average person. It's more like he would meet with a lot of people, simple people, advanced people, sages, people who are struggling all the time, and he felt that time has come to write a book that addresses the questions and the struggles of your average person. That's why it's so relatable. So talking about the average person, we're talking here in chapter 34, how to bring more joy and closeness to Hashem. And we talked about in the earlier chapters that one way to bring inspiration and closeness and feeling a sense of where Hashem is very much present is mainly through meditation of understanding and feeling and have the have the consciousness of the idea that Hashem is everywhere, that Hashem is the only real existence, what we call here the non-duality, meaning that everything is one with Hashem. But that takes a lot of work consciously to always feel this way. So he gives here in this chapter another advice how to feel and how to connect with Hashem in a very close way. And he started by the concept of studying Torah. And Torah study is one of the greatest gifts, or the gift that God has given us. God has shared his wisdom, Torah study, and the Torah is not a book that God wrote to us where we open up when we need instructions, but it's a lot more than that. The Torah is the wisdom of Hashem. And we're talking about wisdom of Hashem, unlike a human person, a person, when they share wisdom with others, there is the power of thinking that each of us possesses through the brain. So in general, there's three steps. There is the brain, which is the engine, so to speak. There's the power to use the brain, which is the power of thought, and then there's the thought that we come up with. And those three steps are not necessarily all mutual, because the more the step advances, the more filtered it gets from where it is at the very core essence. So in other words, in my brain, when I develop an idea, by the time I think it through and articulate it, it's already condensed. So and then if I speak about it and share my thought to somebody else, and somebody else understands what I am thinking, it is just a reflection of my core essence, of my power, of my brain, of my thinking, that they are absorbing. It's impossible to actually get 100% of essence of thinking into something else, into another person. But we in chapter 4, he said by Hashem, when we say the thoughts of Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem, which is just terminology for us to have a certain grasp. Hashem's thinking and wisdom is all one with his essence, which means that if I grasp a Torah thoughts, if I grasp the wisdom, a certain wisdom of Hashem, even if it's something very small, I am attaching, I am actually enveloping myself with a actual part of Hashem. So if my brain understands something, if I study Torah, it's not just instructions how to live a life, how to be inspired, which is all of the above, but more in the sense it is a tremendous unity and a connection that I have with Hashem. And this is the key in learning Torah. In addition, it is food for your soul, for your neshama. Just like our bodies need food, our soul needs to have nourishment. The greatest nourishment you can give to your neshama is Torah study, mitzvahs, and the ultimate mitzvah is actually Torah study. Why? Because when you study Torah, in addition to getting information, in addition to that, it is a ta'anuk, it's a pleasure for the soul, because the seat of the soul is really also in the brain. And if the brain grasps Torah study, then it's the vitality of the brain which runs through the animal soul. The animal soul also gets engaged in the process of the connection with Hashem. But the above all, it is that unity, and that your deepest psyche and understanding becomes connected. That is what turns you into what he calls a temple. You become like a temple, a dwelling place for Hashem. So we know that Hashem says in the Torah that the temple that was built in the desert, the temple that was built in Israel, served as a dwelling place for Hashem. Now that the temple is no longer here, where is the dwelling place for Hashem? It is in the it is he says it's in the 4 cubits of Torah, which basically means in the laws of the Torah, halacha of Torah, and so on. So dwelling, when we say dwelling, we talked about last week. Dwelling, what does it mean Hashem dwells in the temple? What does it mean Hashem dwells in Torah? Hashem dwells everywhere. Hashem's presence is everywhere. But when we say dwelling, we're referring to a home. Home is where a person is, where the essence of the person lives. That's where you express yourself in your essence. So Hashem wants the world not just to be a place where the world, yeah, Hashem is everywhere, but where the world is at home for Hashem, that Hashem's essence is revealed, which means where Hashem feels comfortable. Hashem's essence to be revealed, we don't see that until Mashiach comes. We don't see the essence of Hashem in everything. We believe and understand Hashem is everywhere, but I don't see Hashem. I can see divine providence, I can see miracles, but I cannot see the core essence of Hashem. Why can't we see the core essence of Hashem? Because we are not vessels to absorb the essence of Hashem. When Mashiach will come, the prophet says, "V'ra'u kol basa." Oh, and you will be able to see with your naked eye the words of Hashem, the essence of Hashem and everything. And we want to aspire. So so where do I have a way to have the essence of Hashem, where Hashem dwells and where Hashem feels comfortable? If I immerse myself in Torah study. So if I immerse myself in Torah study with the purpose of connecting to Hashem, where it makes me more humble, where Hashem feels at home, that's how that's the idea. And that's why it is super important to make time to study Torah. Every free moment you have. And we're going to continue here with that theme on page 382, section 3. How to be a temple for a God all day. And you should make a firm decision now that if God will lavish upon you the time and ability to study Torah in the future, then the clean of hands will increase in strength, and you will study Torah as much as you possibly can. So first of all, this is a practical advice. How do I bring Torah learning in my life? So number one, he says, you got to make a firm decision. You got to make it as a firm decision that I'm going to study Torah. And the very fact that you make a firm decision creates the ability and opens up the strength and opens up the vessel to actually get to study Torah. So number one, there has to be the firm decision. And if you do the firm decision, then Hashem helps you, gives you the energy and increases in strength, as we just quoted Job. But now the question is, what happens if I don't have the time all day? I have to work. I don't have the ability to study. So he addresses that as well. But right now, when you cannot study for more than a limited time each day, how do you make yourself a temple for God the rest of the day? If only the time I study Torah, I'm a temple. How about the time I'm not studying Torah? The first that Tanya answers, and the blessed Holy One attaches the good thoughts to the deed. If you decide now that you will study Torah all day whenever you will have the opportunity in the future, that's enough for God to attach a good thoughts to the planned deed and consider it as if you did actually study all day. So this is the concept in halacha, which it means, we just quoted here from the Talmud, that a good attached a good thought to the deed, meaning that 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 in Hebrew is machshava tova mitzdarfa lamaisa. If you have a good thought, meaning you have good intention to do something, Hashem considers it as if you have done the action. That's a important one. In certain not everywhere, but especially when it comes to the relationship between Hashem and you, between you and Hashem. In other words, if I have a good intention, yeah, I would like to help a poor man, giving him food, and that's where it begins and that's where it ends. At the end of the day, the poor man doesn't have the food. It doesn't work. That does not consider the mitzvah. But if I have intention to cleave and to connect to Hashem, and we're talking about a serious intention, a real commitment, meaning that every possibility that I would have, I'm going to do it. In other words, it's not like, okay, I'm going to have a good intention and then I'll become lazy. No, I have a good intention, meaning I really want to go to shul on Shabbos. I really want to daven, right? And then something happens out of my control, and now I have to pray at home, and now I can't pray, for example, I can't study Torah. Hashem will consider it as if you have done it, which it's not about a checklist. It's not about, if it's about a checklist, right? Okay, did you study this? Did you do this? Then at the end of the day, you didn't do it. But it's more about, what is the purpose? The purpose of learning Torah is to create a dwelling place for Hashem, where Hashem is present in your life with the core essence. So if you have that, it's that Hashem gifts you if you had the right intention and the rest was out of your control, so to speak. So he says, don't think that because you don't have time, you shouldn't make the commitment to learn Torah. You don't have time, start with a commitment. Tell Hashem, I want to study Torah every free moment I have. That in itself already opens up the channel for Hashem creating the temple, even in the time when you're not studying Torah. So let's continue here, 383, second paragraph. But he's asking, but you are still lacking a tangible expression of your temple. So Tanya now offers a second suggestion, how to maintain your personal temple status in actual deed. Even the rest of the entire day, when you will be occupied with business, you're unable to study Torah. It can be a firm place for his resting for God through giving tzedakah, charity, which is given from your hard-earned income. Of all the practical mitzvahs, right? We have so many practical mitzvahs, so why does charity render you the closest to a temple for God. When we say temple, we say it where Hashem is kind of dwelling. So he's saying, in addition, that of Torah that you cannot do, you're busy with going to work. What is the other second suggestion that maintain your personal temple is by giving tzedakah. Why tzedakah? Why not? If I put on tefillin in the morning, why doesn't that create the day long temple? So let's see over here. Since charity is one of the character traits of God, this is so interesting. Since charity is one of the character traits of God, and he quotes from the Talmud, Mahu gachum, just as he is merciful and kind, so you must be merciful and kind. And it's stated in the Zohar, Chesed, generosity, is the right hand of Hashem. So ultimately, it is Torah and not mitzvahs that makes you a temple for the divine. As we learned above, the blessed Holy One has no dwelling place in his world for his non-dual oneness other than the 4 cubits of Jewish law. But if we were to chosen one mitzvah, a very close approximation, it would be charity, because in giving charity, you are emulating one of attributes of Hashem. Even charity, though, is not something you can do totally with all your income. So how could this even be an approximate replacement for all-day Torah study, which renders you a constant temple for the divine? And even though, page 384, you only give 1/5 of your income to charity, nevertheless, which is what the preferred amount in Jewish law. Nevertheless, the fifth elevates the other 4 parts with it to God, so that they all become a firm place for his resting for God. You cannot give all your money to charity, because then you wouldn't be able to live. So the sages mandates that you give at least 1/10 of your net income to tzedakah, and you should preferably give 1/5. Preferably, you should give 1/5. So here the Tanya suggests that by giving 1/5, the other 4/5 are elevated, rendering all your money, all your business endeavors carried out to earn that money a kind of temple for God. So before we continue, this is a beautiful insight in the whole concept of tzedakah. So number one, just to clarify, what is the requirement to give tzedakah? So in Torah, the Torah refers to the word eser as tenth. A tenth has to be given. A tenth of your net income has to be given to tzedakah. What type of tzedakah? Which tzedakah comes priority? That's for another conversation. But that's not an option. That's mandated. That's the obligation. The sages say that 10% is the minimum, and ideally to give 20%. Ideally, give a fifth. And the derived from the Torah says twice, aser te aser. So Tanya takes the position that you should give at least 1/5. But the point here is that whatever you're going to give, the 1/5 or the 10%, it's not the 10% that you're giving that time or that money becomes the temple of Hashem. That money becomes elevated. What is tzedakah? What does tzedakah do? In addition of helping the other person, right? We talked about in Tanya always, the whole purpose is to elevate the mundane to the spiritual, to make it godly. Money is something extremely mundane. Money is probably one of the most mundane things in the world. So if you take money and you give it to tzedakah, I'm elevating that money and make that money holy. But he's saying here, not only are you making the money that you're giving to tzedakah, this is so powerful, not only the 10% or the 20% that you're giving becomes elevated, becomes holy money, so to speak, elevated that money, but the remaining money that you have, all the livelihood that you earned, the remaining 80% or 90%, that also becomes holy. Why? It's still in my bank account. It's still in the stock market. It's still in GameStop. Why is that not holy? If my 10% goes to the shul, I understand that 10% becomes holy. Why is my 90% holy? So let's continue here. But what's the logic here? How do the 4/5 of your income that you keep for yourself, attain the spiritual level of charity. So the Tanya offers two explanations. Number one illustration of the logic here is from the well-known statement of our sage of blessed memory that the mitzvah of tzedakah of charity is equivalent to all the sacrifices. And in the case of the sacrifices, the Zohar teaches that one single animal offered as the korban tamid, the daily offering, caused the entire animal kingdom to be elevated to God. And the entire plant kingdom was elevated through 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil. Every sacrifice that was brought in the temple was brought as an animal sacrifice, along with a flour mixed with oil offering. So the Zohar says, you think you bring in that one sacrifice in the temple, and that one sacrifice became elevated. No, this sacrifice elevated the entire animal kingdom of the universe. And this oil and flour mixed with oil offering elevated the entire plant kingdom. So there is, however, a problem with this logic. One single animal did not literally cause the entire animal kingdom to be elevated to God. All the animals in the world did not suddenly attain the sacred status of sacrifices when one sacrifice was offered. What the Tanya means to say is that all animals became very slightly easier to elevate in the future. So due to this problem, the Tanya now offers a second explanation for the elevation dynamic. All right, so here's a problem. He's saying, yes, everything was elevated. But then he says, no, in essence, what the Zohar is saying that everything else is elevated, it doesn't mean that now all the animals of the world became holy. But rather, it attained what he says over here, that all they became slightly easier to elevate in the future, kind of opened the door that now all the other animals can also have the ability to become elevated, but not that it actually becomes elevated. So that's why he adds a second, and soon we're going to recap the whole thing here. In 385, and besides the first explanation, when you study Torah and pray, you elevate to God everything that you ate, drank, and benefit from for the sake of your body's health. From the remaining 4/5, which were not elevated directly through the 1/5 of your income, giving to charity, as will be explained later in chapter 37. In this second explanation, a good degree of your income, which you keep for yourselves, actually elevates to God, because the food and drink that with your metabolism burns when praying and studying Torah is really elevated to holiness. So basically, what he's saying is that it's a combination of Torah and tzedakah. Torah study. You use your body, your brain, you energy to order to pray. In order to study, you need to have a health. You need to have your body. How is your body being sustained? By food, by your house, right? By whatever, by walking, by sleeping. So how do you have access to be living and be alive physically? For that you need to have money, you need to have an income, you need to have livelihood. Without livelihood, you can't have a house, can't have food. So what he's saying is, so your study of Torah gets sustained by the money that you earned. You gave 10% or 20% of your money to tzedakah, right? So now that 20% is elevated. The rest of the money is not actually elevated that it became part of tzedakah, but the rest of the money is giving you giving you sustainability. And what are you doing with that sustainability? You are studying Torah. So it's basically what is putting it all together. It's a beautiful harmony of you going to work, you're sleeping, you're eating, all your mundane activities, and as a result, you're giving tzedakah and you're studying Torah. So everything the fact that you're sitting in your office and you're working, that gets elevated because that is helping you. That's a direct the direct result to helping you to study Torah and give tzedakah. Just to bring in a I was once at the conference, at the Chabad Shluchim conference, and they had one of the benefactors there was not a Chabadnik, but he's supports a lot of the Chabad activities on campuses. Gives millions and millions of dollars to tzedakah every year. And he spoke there, and one of the things that resonated, he said, they asked him about what inspires him to give tzedakah, and he says, they say that that you have to give 10 or 20% to tzedakah, and that is the kind of the commission that you give to Hashem, right? He says, I don't look at it this way. I look at the other way around. I don't look at I have to give Hashem 10% commission. I look at everything comes from Hashem, and Hashem asked me to give 10% to tzedakah. That means I'm actually working on 90% commission. Meaning that it's not that you have to give 10% commission to Hashem. I'm working on a 90% commission. So if you look that it's my money and I have to give 10% to Hashem, Hashem needs his commission. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. But he's looking at it, how beautiful it is that I can work on a 90% commission. Hashem has blessed me. So I would like to, it says 90% commission, I can live on 70% commission or 50% commission. Yes, Leon, you have a question. You have to unmute.
How do you calculate net? So in other words, you could, let's say, I understand business-wise, obviously, expenses against the income, but then there's living, and I don't know how you calculate that or how it is calculated.
In general, it means net means net, post taxes, so to speak.
So like on your tax return, it's kind of a joke. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. I mean,
no tax returns by Hashem.
Look the bottom line on your tax return and see what your CPA says.
There are a lot of people who that's how they calculate how much tzedakah they give.
Wow.
They calculate literally what is their net income, and that's how they want to determine the 10 to 20%. I can just tell you that it is not it's not that it has to stop at one point. In other words, it's if you look at tzedakah that it's a burden, then you'll try to get away like paying taxes.
No. I understand that. I understand what you're saying. But what I almost the reverse is so that we don't quote unquote cheat God. I actually just refinanced a couple of properties, and the loan officer said to me, "I got to tell you, you are the first landlord I have ever seen that has reported a positive income on their tax return." So I said, "Listen, there's somebody bigger watching." But so that we don't underestimate, I mean, I understand it is giving out of the heart. So I'm just trying to get not a smart aleck answer, but what would be a prudent answer so that anything over that is fine, but don't try to cheat God, so to speak. I mean, it's because I've heard different interpretations. So I wanted to hear what your answer was.
Again, I don't know the long answer here. There's more of a shorter answer, but and again, every person has their situations. It can get complicated if people want to calculate earnings that you have that are on paper. They're not in liquid cash, etc. But maybe I'll study it deeper and present it next time around and have a little bit more clarity for all of you.
Leona, as my understanding, from the business point of view, you count this net. From the personal income, you count from the gross, from total income personal. Wherever you get $20,000, 2,000 goes to charity. That's it. From the business, you deduct all expenses, and then it is a net. You
Thank
give
you,
in.
Mike.
But isn't what you get at business, that becomes personal? I mean, I don't know the difference. What is a personal income that isn't through business?
Well, actually, what Maya is touching about, and this is another interesting topic, and we'll, we should maybe give a class on tzedakah and study the laws. But as much as the same like a personal income you give tzedakah, a Jewish business also has to give tzedakah. Also has an obligation of tzedakah. That's where maybe she's saying net versus gross. In other words, if you run a business, the business itself has a requirement to give tzedakah.
Oh,
And
so
that-
I see.
huh?
So it's like a corporation. So if you own
Yeah.
a corporation, oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
But then it just seems to me, if we deduct like our food and shelter and those things, there's not that much net left.
No, from
No.
personal, it's going gross. From business, it's going net. That's what my understanding.
So that makes sense, Maya. So she's saying basically it's gross after once you get your paycheck, basically, not my expenses, my living expenses are.
No,
Let's say I get $1,000. My living expenses are $900, and I have to give $10 out of my remaining $100. No, you have to give $100 to tzedakah. In the business world, it's net. Where after your business expenses, what are the profits of the business, and then you would give 10% off the profits. Let's finish the chapter.
Can I ask
Yes,
quick question?
Bella.
Just that I understand correctly. Torah decree is 1/5 and rabbinical decree is 10%,
No, the other way around.
the other way around. So who says 1/5?
Tanya said.
In Torah is 10%.
In Torah 10%. And
The same-
rabbinical decree is 1.
The sages write that the minimum requirement is 10%. Ideally is 20%. Ideally is a fifth.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Sandy likes that one.
Not totally clear, but that's because it just depends if nobody's writing you a check. Somebody writes you a check, then it's clear that's, your income, but I don't know. If you're in business for yourself, is it, I'll figure it out where, I don't know.
I'll be happy.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to have personal sessions about your
I don't need to take the
your
time.
tzedakah wages.
We'll go back to the Tanya.
It's gonna get costly.
You charge by the hour?
And you know that if you miss giving tzedakah in your lifetime, you have to pay up.
That's what I'm afraid of. You have to come back, the resurrection, right? And pay it then.
All right, let's finish up here. By the way, the Rebbe writes somewhere that one of the reasons why America is one of the most blessed country in the world, because America is so charitable. And coming from other places in the world, there's a very strong emphasis on charity in America more than most other countries.
I've heard that.
But also amongst Jews, the Rebbe says that although that there is a tremendous assimilation in America or around the world, one of the greatest merits that we Jews have is that we are strong in charity, that one mitzvah of charity. You can find, you walk into museums and hospitals. I walk into Sarasota Memorial Hospital in the beautiful lobby, right? And Sarasota has probably 5% Jews. What's the population of percentage of Jews? 5%, 10%? If you look at the names that are up on that wall, it's like almost 50% Jewish names.
It's
So
all true.
there's a very strong emphasis in tzedakah. And that's the and that is a tremendous thing, and should not be taken for granted, because the federations are all sounding alarms, because the latest research and the statistics are that American young Jews there's a major decline of charitable giving. We the older generation, uh, the older generation
All right, us.
has still seen this in their homes. The blue pushka, the blue tzedakah box, the idea of tzedakah. But the young generation are by and large are much less um, inclined, and that's why it is important to talk about tzedakah to your family, and to make that a central part of your life, because that's the only way you can really transmit the values of tzedakah to the next generation. Um, the last thing I want to mention is the Rebbe also emphasized strongly, and that goes really with this chapter, to give tzedakah every day, because this is the mitzvah of tzedakah should be done on an ongoing basis to create that blessing of bringing Hashem's dwelling in your place, which basically means to tzedakah is not that tzedakah is not a big amount in one shot. Rebbe actually says Rebbe encouraged every person, every room, every child should have in their bedroom a tzedakah box, and they should start the day by giving a little coin. And you should have a tzedakah box in your house. The Rebbe suggested to have it in the kitchen, and the Rebbe even said it should be attached. Should be a tzedakah box that's attached to the wall.
Hmm.
Why? Because when it's attached to the wall, then the walls of the home are being elevated. The foundation of the whole house is attached to the mitzvah. It's a very cute concept. So, but every day, in addition to your regular tzedakah that you're doing once a year or every month, doesn't matter, is to give tzedakah, put a coin, put a nickel, put a quarter in, because that then you're bringing that mitzvah. So the amount is not so important, but even something minimum in your day, except of course Shabbos. But it says Friday you should give double for Shabbos. In other words, if you every day give a quarter, so Shabbos Friday give 2 quarters, or do it before you light the candles. Okay, that's something was brought up in my home, was a very strong emphasis. My father, come down for breakfast, and then we'll give every child a little coin, and we had this pushka that was was screwed into the wall, and we would put tzedakah every single day.
Hmm.
In addition to have a tzedakah box in your car, we already spoke about that as well. So your car becomes a dwelling place, a mitzvah mobile. Your car becomes a holy entity. It's all about the concept here in Tanya, that it elevates everything. My father once had a very bad accident. Um, on the way, it was driving from Switzerland to Germany with a friend to the U.S. Army base. America has army bases in Germany, and it was before Hanukkah, so 1987. He would drive about 4 hours and to visit the army base and bring those Jewish soldiers, who are the American Jewish soldiers, menorahs. And the way back in Germany, the Autobahn, the highways, has no speed limit, and somebody cut my father off, and my father's car flipped 3 times. He walked out, him and his friend walked out without a scratch. I remember that because he lost his glasses, and he had weak eyes like I have. Um, and that was, you kind of had to let him on a train, not be able to see well. But he wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe responded to make sure to have a tzedakah box and a Jewish book called Chitas, which has in it one volume. It has in it the Chumash, the Torah, the Tehillim, and a Tanya. It looks like this. It's a thick book.
Mm.
Is it coming?
What's the name?
It's called the Chitas.
Itat?
Chitas. You can order it online, and it's over here. It says Chumash, which is the Torah, Tehillim, Psalms, and Tanya. So within it,
all
you have
one book.
all the 5 books of Torah,
Wow.
and you have Tehillim, and then we also have the Tanya.
But it's only in Hebrew, probably.
It's all in Hebrew. But more important than just be, it's not necessarily you have to reach from it, but have one in the car. Just
Really?
just have one in the car. If you guys want, text me. I'll order a bunch of them, and then you guys, not so expensive, $20. We'll order for you. Bella, what's your question?
What's it
It's
called
not a
again?
question. I wanted to tell you that I had very similar story about the car. When my granddaughter Emily had her first car, my husband Boris put a bag of coins into her car, and she got into a very bad accident. The car was total, and the guys couldn't understand the police how she was alive. She went out untouched. She got a new car, and she put that bag of coins back. So I think
Beautiful,
that
beautiful. You can start that right away because a tzedakah box doesn't have to be something specific. You can have a little bag of coins,
that's what
an empty bag, and every day you put a little coin inside, and then eventually give it to tzedakah. And I want to emphasize one more point. The same thing goes with mezuzahs on the doors in the houses, right? Which clearly says it's a protection. And then I see already Sandy's going to ask me, but what about the people who did die in a car accident? That did have a tzedakah box in it? What are the people who burned in a house that did have a mezuzah? What's about that? Right, Sandy, is that a question you're going to have? Okay, yes. We only see half your face, but I can see in your eyes. So,
no. I think it could be much worse.
so
Oh,
the Rebbe addressed that. The Rebbe addressed that in the 70s. There was a school in Sfas that was taken over by terrorists, and they end up taking hostage and killed about 23 or 27 students. It was a horrible terrorist attack, and the Rebbe asked his shliach in Sfas after the incident to go into the school's dormitory and check all the mezuzot. Apparently, they had 150 rooms and 150 mezuzot. They took down all the mezuzot, and 27 or 23 mezuzot were actually not kosher. Something was wrong with the mezuzah. The exact same amount of kids that were killed, exact same amount of mezuzot. So people ask the Rebbe, does that mean the mezuzahs killed these people? How horrible! It sounds like horrible. And the Rebbe said, God forbid. We don't understand why things happen. We don't understand Hashem's ways. However, we have to look at a mezuzah or a tzedakah or the chitas, whatever it is. You have to look at it like a helmet, a soldier who wears a helmet at war, right? If you take off the helmet at war, do you die? No. But if a bullet gets charges against you, the helmet will protect you. So this mitzvahs are here that when things fly towards us, that they help us to be a protection. But not that God forbid if you don't have it, God forbid that's why you died. Or even if something did happen, it didn't work. Hashem's ways are mysterious. We want to add every layer to protect us from all these harm and illnesses. So let's continue, finish the chapter 385, section 4, integrating negative and positive emotions. A long section of the Tanya dealing with emotional maintenance, which began in chapter 26, now Okay, we had a power outage. Are you still with me here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. We just had a split-second power outage. Everything went off in my house. Maybe I should not make fun of the people up north. Okay. One second. Let's see on my phone. Let me just get my computer back on here. Okay, I'm just going to use my phone for now. Finish up here the chapter. So again, we're in section 4. A long section of Tanya dealing with emotional maintenance, which began in chapter 26, now draws to a close. In chapter 26 to 28, we'll learn various methods to deal with depression arising from both material and spiritual concern. In chapter 29 to 30, we learned a number of meditations to humble the spirit so as to overcome emotional insensitivity to spirituality, Timtum Halev. In chapter 31 and 33 to 34, we have learned a number of meditations to lead us to joy. So the Tanya now concludes by stressing that the negative and positive emotions we have explored are not mutually exclusive, and it's possible to integrate both into your heart at the same time. What does that mean? So now, all the above detailed meditation that bring joy to the soul, there's nothing to stop you being disgusted in your eyes and repulsive, broken-hearted and ego-deflated. At the very same time, you are joyous because being disgusting in your eyes, as he quotes, right? Meaning disgusting of the ego, disgusting of the evil impulse, is a reflection of your body and animal soul. And being joyful is a reflection of your divine soul and the spark of godness enmeshed in it, energizing it, as mentioned above in chapter 31. Since you have two souls, it's possible for you to have two different feelings simultaneously. Tanya now cites a precedent from the Zohar for this approach, and it was in reference to such a case of experiencing opposite emotions simultaneously that the Zohar states that Rabbi Shimon revealed wondrous secrets that explained the destruction of the temple. His son, Rabbi Eliezer, said that he felt tearfulness lodged into my heart on one side as a result of the heightened awareness of the temple's destruction, and joy lodged into my heart on the other side as a result of the revelation of wondrous new Torah insights. So basically, this is so important that we always emphasize. In Judaism, it's not a contradiction to be sad and be joyful at the same time, to be emotionally drained and inspiration and to be inspired at the same time. Simple talk, simply understanding this because we have two souls. You've got two operation systems in you, right? Yeah, the newer cars where they have a AC system and heating system, right? You can make the temperature for the driver one way, and you can make a temperature for the passenger another way. You can have cool for the driver and heat for the passenger. Why? Because it's obviously in the car there's two systems in there that can work together. So most times we think it's a contradiction. I can't be joyful if I am sad, or if I am dealing with being upset at my spiritual state, or I'm emotionally numb and I can't be joyful about Hashem and Torah. No, you can be both. You can have those both ideas at the same time. In the end, he says about Rabbi Akiva, who wrote the Zohar, and his son Rabbi Eliezer. When Rabbi Eliezer, I'm sorry, Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shimon ben Bar Yochai, who wrote the Zohar, as Rabbi Eliezer would say, that he felt the tears as Rabbi Shimon witnessed the destruction of the temple. But at the same time, he was joyful about the Torah that they were learning together. All right, we will continue next week. Any last minute questions? Okay, everyone have a great week, and I'll see you around. All the best.
Thank you.